Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Podcast. We've got Jay White back on the show as it's week 7, still week 7, even though the Sunday slate of games is complete. We're looking at Monday Night Football here. Do want to mention Jay White is back after a little bit of a break from hanging out with us. She needed to get some surgery. That's why for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the beautiful sunglasses that she's wearing despite the fact that it's nighttime. We know it's nighttime, so we don't need anybody who's watching to jump in the comments and remind us. Right. She's well aware.
I don't walk around wearing sunglasses at night. Like I'm not,
a douche. You could say it. You're not a douche.
They're there for a reason.
Perfect. So
I thought we could clear that up so that I wasn't embarrassing myself on YouTube.
And that's just good producership. Like that's what I should be doing. So I'm glad that you made sure that I acknowledge that for those who are watching. So we didn't really need any of that flack. But we move on to some picks that we're going to make here for Monday Night Football for everybody with Jay White's team, the San Francisco 49ers, playing the Minnesota Vikings. But first, a quick rundown of what you can expect in the show today. Like I said, we're going to talk about how we did so far this week in week 7. We're going to look ahead to Monday Night Football with some best bets, some parlays. We're going to have a parlay for the people, something that I started an episode ago, where we're going to give away the money for this parlay that we're going to put together. We're going to get it at 10-1 or better if we can. If it's around 9.5 to 1, I think we'll take it as long as we feel really good about these bets. And I know Jay White has some good bets for us for Monday night, and so we'll see which ones we have the most confidence in. I do want to mention that you need to be to like the video. You need to be following along on the YouTube channel as a subscriber. Also need you to follow along if you're listening on audio and podcast, and rate the show with 5 stars to become eligible to go ahead and win that money. So I'll go ahead and put out a social media tweet as well. You can follow everywhere so you can make sure that you don't miss this opportunity to win some money on Monday night. And of course, we're going to have a Jay White TD special because she is the queen, I got to be honest, of anytime touchdowns. I'm not saying that like she does it every single week, but like, I mean, you're up way more than you're not. I definitely know that since I've known you. So we'll look at some of the stuff that you like here. I'm going to get into how we did in week 7 here. I had recorded with Dieter Kurtenbach and Levy for Thursday night, and Levy and I did super well. We went 4-1 there and made 4 units on the night because we had a couple plus money bets. So on that was for the player props that we did there. The player props that Dieter and I did that were on Sunday, we went 3-3, lost 0.4 units there. So we are up on the player props on the week, but down a little bit on the sides, 2-3, and lost 2.2 units there as well. So overall for the week, we're actually up about 1.5 units, which on the season brings us to about 34-33 in our record, but still up 2.1 units. So, it's all about obviously how much you end with and not necessarily the record alone, although it can be pretty indicative. So we'll look to continue moving along in the regular season and keep winning money. So as we are up about $250 for those of you who are following along with unit measurement. So how did you do though? Let me bring you in officially here, Jay White, and see how you are feeling about week 7 after a weird Sunday.
Yeah, this actually worked out well. As I told you, I had something going on this weekend, so I wasn't able to watch any of the games today, except for this Sunday night game that just wrapped up. So I went pretty light this week just because, I knew I wasn't going to be able to watch anything. I'm kind of glad that I stayed away. I was on the right side of the Steelers-Rams game. Mike Tomlin doing Mike Tomlin things. I loved him in that spot. I had a bad read on the Miami and Philly game just now. Miami, they're an enigma. I'm not quite sure what to expect with them for the rest of the season. The Lions just completely broke my heart, as did the Bills, as did the Raiders. So it was pretty disappointing overall for me today. Yeah. But I didn't go too in depth on I didn't have any touchdown picks this week. No player props. I just picked a couple of the spreads that I thought I liked. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do, man? It was a tough week for me with sides as well. I actually got saved big time by Jalen Waddle in that Philadelphia game on the last drive that really was meaningless, even though they didn't even go anywhere with it, the Dolphins. Jalen Waddle needed to get me 8 yards to get over 62 to be one of my props that hit, and he did that. So it was kind of a nice ending to it all for me. But other than that, like I said, overall still up on the week, but it felt like there was a lot of money that was left on the table. I'm in agreement with you that the Bills are just soul crushing to a degree because of the way that they're losing in ways that they shouldn't, in situations that they should be covering. So it was just an overall weird week where the majority of underdogs won outright. Like can't make that up, right? That was more teams that were underdogs actually won those games than not. There was probably a lot of money to be made with some underdog parlays. I think the one of the lessons I learned is just like it was an ugly week with a bunch of totals under 38 points, to the point where it's like when there's weirdness like that, then that probably means there's going to be some underdogs that can pull it out because of the sort of variance that is not as much when there's not as many points being scored.
Yeah. I mean, I think I read something about unders just hitting at an unprecedented rate at this point, just because
Right.
in general, I think that like this season thus far has had some of the lowest scoring games, in years probably. So
No question.
definitely something to keep in mind. Not great for the kind of bets I like to make. I prefer to bet overs. Quite honestly, just because betting under anything is like not really that fun in my opinion.
Totally. We're all the
So
same.
yeah, and also because that picking touchdown scorers is my thing. So it's harder to do that when I mean, obviously, if it's going to be a
Right.
lower scoring game. So that's going to be a challenge for me. It's something I'm thinking about for the rest of the season for sure.
Yeah, it's smart, and it is always like, look, there's a lot of value in unders because of the fact that the books know that they do bake into overs and scoring props of sorts. They bake in the idea that nobody likes to hit an under. It's just not as much fun,
Right.
But until a number starts to get hit down or what have you, they won't really move it too far down. They'll only continue moving it upwards. So the over is never going to not. It's usually more often than not going to be worse out of the two options that you have with over and under. But either way, I put two unders out there today that missed, including Desmond Ritter, who went over his prop by 40 yards. So some of the stuff that we felt good about today that I hit was Josh Downs, who was a great call to get over 4.5 receptions on plus money. But Jonathan Taylor was one of those unders, and it was just like it was a wonky week, man, with a lot of weird wins. And I thought maybe Jonathan Taylor was still only going to get around 13 carries. He ended up with 17 carries. And so he got over that number by about 30 yards today. So we'll see how things shape up out there in Indianapolis. Obviously, JT is going to continue to get those reps. But let's move on and talk about this Monday night football game here. San Francisco, your 49ers are at Minnesota, coming off their first loss of the season against PJ Walker and those Browns, who also had an incredible comeback win today, or back and forth win, we'll say, between them and the Colts. But for this game, San Francisco, as we record this on Sunday night, -6.5. The total of this game is at 43, with one of the best defenses in the league and one of the worst defenses in the league for the Vikings. So 43 probably about fair. Do want to mention that CMC, Christian McCaffrey, is looking like he's going to play. The most recent injury report had him as questionable, but everything that you would read coming out of San Francisco does seem to say that he's going to play in this one. Debo is already out for this one. Trent Williams is doubtful, and it's looking like a really not going to play doubtful. And Dre Greenlaw is still questionable, which is the only one I really wasn't able to find any more concrete information that would lead me to know if he's going to play or not for the incredibly aggressive and talented linebacker for the 49ers. Minnesota, outside of Jay Jett and Justin Jefferson, who's out for the season, not really much to talk about there. So first thoughts, just, right away, without thinking too much about it, what is it that hits you about this game and stands out?
I mean, in a surprise to absolutely no one, I really like the Niners and the points here. I would even consider an alt spread of something like -9.5 here. I feel like I sort of played myself by revealing both the fact that I dropped that big preseason bet on the Niners to win Super Bowl, and also that I am a born and raised Niner fan. I hope that doesn't cheapen any of my takes. Regardless, the Niners train is very much on a track made of reality. Clearly not just my opinion. So this take is really more about how little faith I have in the Vikings. I called them frauds all last season, if you'll remember. Their win last week over the Bears did absolutely nothing for me. I felt no type of way about it. They're 0-3 at home, so that renders home field advantage as a non-factor as far as I'm concerned. And Cousins has consistently been a letdown in primetime. He also really struggled in his first game without Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Only 2 touchdowns, which would be a solid effort for this game against the Niners, but every other team who has met this terrible Bears defense has scored a minimum of 20 points.
Yeah.
Well, except the Raiders today. Man, the Raiders just continue to let me down. I feel like I believed in them a little more than most people did.
It's not crazy to look at the talent that they have. Their offensive line is really good. Their wide receivers are very good. Their top
Yes.
two, including one of the best wide receivers who's ever played football,
Oh.
and the best running back. At least a top 3 running back in the league last year, in Josh Jacobs, who's coming alive,
He
starting to
was
look
the
like
best
his
running
old.
back. I mean, I forget by what measure, but
Well, he had
last
the most yards. Yeah, he had the
yeah,
most rushing yards for sure. So, either way, I'm saying he like overall, like you would have taken him with a top 3 running back pick last year. And so this year he's starting to look like that guy again. So you're not crazy for believing in them. It's just that's how freaking important the quarterback position is, because Brian Hoyer was a mess, and Jimmy G, like, look, man, he's a part of the reason that they don't have an identity, in my opinion, because of the fact that like he's limited in so many ways that they can't necessarily stretch the field how they might want to, for instance, or run certain plays that might require him to roll out in certain ways. Like it's just not anything he can do anymore, especially. So
yeah.
yeah, without going too far on the Raiders,
Right. Well, okay,
I
but to
agree.
be clear, when I say I believed in them a little more than most, I mean not to actually be competitive, but to not be embarrassing. So
Sure.
and I hate when I'm wrong and when I'm
Yeah.
pulling for a team.
Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah. So
Bajent, baby.
anyway, I'm for this for Chimone, I'm just going with the team that's better on both sides of the ball. I do want to hear your thoughts before we get
Jump into
deep
your
into
bets.
other things, and
Yeah.
I want to also briefly touch on the over under because I can't quite get a read on that, and I'd like to hear what you think. I don't see the 49ers having any trouble scoring on this Vikings defense, even with these injuries. My man CMC is expected to play, but I don't know what the Vikings are going to put up. So open to your thoughts as well.
Sure, yeah. I mean, my thoughts on this game and how I'm really looking to bet it is like, do I believe that the 49ers took some form of step back last week? Do I think that the way that they lost was because what they got? I mean, to a degree, maybe they did get out coached a little bit. I would say Brock missed some throws in a really bad environment that I don't think PJ Walker looked incredible in, by the way. Not that like Brock
Yeah.
Purdy's measuring
Also,
stick should be him.
sorry, but who? Like,
Yeah,
who's that?
yeah, for sure. I mean, PJ Walker, former XFL great. So
Huh?
no, perennial
Let me
backup who by the way, Tyson Bagent, the quarterback who won for the Bears today, beat out PJ Walker for the backup spot on the Bears. That's how PJ Walker ended up on the Browns again. But for this game, like, yeah, I'm looking at like that question and going, no, I don't think they took a step back. I think everything fell in place for them to lose that game, including losing Debo and CMC, which, say what you want about Purdy, I'm not here to have necessarily a how good is he conversation. I'm just here to say anybody and that played quarterback in the NFL ever in the history of the league would be worse once Debo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey went out. And so he definitely was. The wetness definitely affected him a good amount. They're playing in a dome right now, which I don't think is gonna. I get the skull chance and all that. That's an inflated or deflated rather franchise and fan base right now with the Minnesota Vikings, knowing that this season is like, might as well get rid of Kirk Cousins in the as soon as you can, because there's no reason to have him on the books for next year. Jay Jet's probably gone, and we probably won't see him the rest of this season. I don't think they have much benefit in bringing him back, knowing he's going to walk anyway. So yeah, I think this is a beaten down franchise that like did a good job to win some games that Bryce Young handed them and that were against a Bears team that ended up losing their quarterback. I don't believe in them at all. And I think the only thing that won the Browns the game last week was their defense.
Yes.
And the 49ers defense did not lose that game by any measure.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And I don't think, God, just reading some stuff online last week, people were so gleeful about the Niners losing and, the Brock Purdy story unraveling, and people just don't want to see this team succeed for one reason or another. I mean, maybe that is a little biased in me, but I feel like that's the narrative I'm seeing online. People don't want to believe in Brock Purdy, and like people were excited about this happening. But yeah, by no means did the defense lose that game. I think that the injuries, I mean, that just completely changes the dynamics, right? Like when two of the most important productive guys on the offense, are walking off the field, and it shakes things up. It
Yeah.
changes things, and I really think that was kind of the driving factor. This is a great get right spot.
Yep.
And what you said about the
Exactly.
Vikings is true. I mean, of course, the guys are always going to try to be competitive, but this season is slipping away for
Oh
them,
yeah.
and
I
they
think
know.
it's gone.
And it's the very much opposite for the Niners. So
Yeah.
not only are they, again, better on both sides of the ball, but have a lot more reason, to
Yeah.
play to
To
win.
just to and especially like the thing I do think is possible is like Kirk Cousins scores a few touchdowns after they're already down 3, scores in the end of the third and into the fourth
Oh, he's
quarter. Like
those
there's a
garbage time points, isn't he? That's the
right.
thing.
Oh, that's his thing. But even in on Monday night, he's a little bit less of the king of garbage time points. He's 2-10 on Monday Night Football in his career, which is just such a wonderful stat. I will
Yeah.
say he does have 290 or more, let's say 270 or more yards in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those 12. So like in half of those games, he is coming back and putting up those garbage time points. Even if that happens, I do think Purdy and company, and especially if Christian McCaffrey's playing, who is just so clearly the best running back in the NFL this season, that if he is playing, like it's just going to be such an easy time for them because he opens everything up at that point, which I don't need to tell you. So let me get into your first favorite bet. I know we've got a bunch of props on the table. Did you want to talk about the sides at all or the totals? Are you going to put anything on that, you think, or are you off of either of those?
Yeah, no, that's what I started off by saying is I really
Totally.
like the Niners and the points. So I'm seeing -7. I think you said -6.5. So clearly got to shop around a little bit because that half point is the difference maker. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. So but I would take it. I would take it up to 10. Honestly, I really feel good about this spot for the Niners. The over under, I might stay away from that just because I like several player prop bets and I don't have I feel like I don't have the best success rate on picking game total over unders. It's just not my strongest suit. So we'll
It's been
probably
hard this year.
not unless you have a super strong feeling about it. And I was gonna
No. Totals are in the NFL are so not my thing. The NBA is about to kick off, tip off, whatever. I'm gonna need to get my vernacular back in order. It's gonna
yeah.
tip off,
I'm sorry. I don't
and
correct you, but
I
yikes.
mean, I'm like I said, it's been too long since I've been talking about a tip off, man. I'm so freaking pumped. I love totals in the NBA a lot more often than the NFL is my point, and I think I'll have a few on opening night because you can definitely find some edges on like an opening night game when defenses are still kind of lackadaisical, and not necessarily as intense as you might be coming back from Cabo and places like that. So
Good
at
point.
any rate for this game, no, I would agree. If you get this under a touchdown, I still feel as noob as it might sound to say like take as long as you're under 7, like that half a point is just so important. I
Yeah.
can't fully comprehend why it hasn't gotten bet beyond 7. I guess the public is a little bit of scared of what they saw last week. Like, what would be your guess there?
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering why there's been no line movement myself. So either there's something fishy going on, but this doesn't feel like a trap game to me.
Yeah,
So I think it probably has to do with the loss last week. It's
yeah,
when a team is doing so well, when they do lose, it's jarring. And
yeah.
I think that there might be an overreaction to that.
I should say this did get bet up. My bad. I didn't realize it opened at 2.5 and people were hitting it so hard. That's right. I was like totally spacing that because it feels like so long ago because I was listening to podcasts and reading about it on Monday, and looking at the lines last Monday for this game, and it opened at 2.5 on like
Open
last
at
Sunday night,
2.5? Okay,
minus
I
two and a
was
half.
not aware of that. I
Yeah.
feel like the first time I looked at it was maybe on Wednesday,
Oh
and
yeah.
it was
By Tuesday like morning, it was at like 5.5. Yeah, it's all coming back now. But yeah, you were on Wednesday. It was already at like 6.5 for sure. I was really still thinking you would get bet past that, but I when I even said it, I was still thinking like it should still get bet past that. But I mean, once you get a spread up there, people are going to bet it back down under 7 because that seems to be what the sharps are thinking. And some sharps are always going to go and just hit it once it gets past a certain number anyway, like 7, once it got over a touchdown, things of that nature. So it is at -7 in most places, to your point. You might still be able to find some 6.5s, but if it does get to 7.5, it's just going to get bet down again, I would guess, before the game starts tomorrow. So, just continue to monitor it accordingly, because I still think you get really good value under a touchdown for Kirk Cousins on Monday night versus what we still perceive to be the best team in football. So
Agreed.
getting
And
to
I would consider a sprinkle on that alt spread.
yeah, and don't be scared of it. I'm with you. The alt spread I like better than just taking the hook, but like leaning into your take is one that I like doing more than like trying to like just eat the half a point there for no reason when it's such an important number around 7 points.
Yeah.
Um, let me
Like
let me jump into
I
your
either
your
want
first one.
-6.5 or I want like
Right,
-10. Not
great,
I don't
yeah,
want 7.
but it makes sense.
It does.
It does. So can I demand your first pick?
Yeah. All right. So I've got 3 player props that I really like that could possibly go in your parlay for the people. First one, Brandon Ayuk over 73.5 yards. I think he will absolutely own the Vikings secondary because they are in the bottom half of the league in every category defending the pass. He's seen no fewer than 6 targets in every game this season and is averaging 18.1 yards per reception. This number just feels low, and it should only take 4 or 5 receptions to hit. He's already had a pair of 100-plus yard games. I think it was 129 against the Steelers and 150, 145 against the Cards. I think he and Purdy are they're going to click tomorrow night on a fast indoor field in Minneapolis. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as soon as Debo was ruled out too, I was like, wonderful. It's time for Ayuk to feast. I mean, he's might already be the just better. I mean, he's definitely already a better just sort of possession receiver. I think you'll always make the case that Deebo Samuel is a very fast running back, right? Playing wide receiver and actually sometimes running back. So he's going to always get the yak. I think he's always going to be harder to tackle in open space. That said, Ayuk is like Devontae Adams light, in essentially, which is not an insult at all when you consider how freaking good Devontae Adams is. But when you have a catch radius that's almost comparable, you have hands coming across the middle, you're fearless all over the place. I have no problem with that. Obviously, last week's game script was not good for him. Even with the game being around, neutral game script for most of it, only at the end were they losing a little bit. He still had like 12 targets in that game. So yeah, he's always going to be a good bet. I think that the passing yards are going to be there. And if his name was, he's going to be a wide receiver 1. And if his name was in the top 7, 8 guys, that number would probably be like 95, like Tyreek Hill's number was against the Eagles today. So I completely concur that like he's a wonderful bet in this one. I think he's the least controversial of any of the picks that I know that you want to talk about. So
yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who would argue with this. I mean, it makes sense. We're gonna call Debo wide receiver 1, but
yeah,
Ayuk is right next to him in my opinion. He's really broken out this year. I know that he put in a lot of work over the offseason. I read a couple things about that. Just really impressed the team. So I'm really happy to see him shining this year. And obviously, I don't want Debo out, but I think that this is a great spot for him.
Yeah, totally. The thing that's great about him too is the touchdowns go way up actually when Debo's out, which is interesting. He's it's not like there's that many more per game, but without Debo, he's basically averaging like almost a touchdown a game. So there is something to be said for him getting in the end zone as well in this one. I mean, I hate taking necessarily outside of Christian McCaffrey on this team. I just don't like taking touchdowns because of how much Kyle likes to use different people in different ways in that type of situation. But I think outside, especially when Debo's not around, Brandon Ayuk is like a really good go-to for a dependable guy to be getting double-digit targets for sure. And if that's the case, he's someone who's not running routes short of like 10 yards. He's got a wonderful ADOT as well. So let me move on to pick number 2, though, because I think this one is actually surprisingly a little bit more interesting, even though Ayuk is a much better receiver than KJ Osborne. KJ Osborne's a much more interesting conversation for this game and just in general. When Justin Jefferson isn't there, he did pretty well in last week's game without Jay Jett, which is something that is a big deal because last year he didn't. There were some games that Justin Jefferson missed, and when he was out, Osborne did nothing. I know I picked him up in fantasy football. He did nothing last year in the 2 games that he was the wide receiver 1 without Justin Jefferson. And even in last week's game, like he looked fine. It wasn't a great game for Kirk Cousins and that offense in general. But he still had the 7 receptions or so for like in the 50 yards. So he's capable of this, and his number's pretty low, right?
Yeah, so that the second pick is over 39 and a half yards.
Yeah.
That's what it was sitting at when I looked earlier today. This is a guy that I think Minnesota has been waiting on to step up, and now especially with Jefferson out, I like the over on this a lot. He's been quiet out of the gate so far this season, but has seen a lot more production the past 2 games, grabbing 9 receptions on 14 targets for a total of 91 yards between the last 2 games. I like it here. I'm expecting a bigger passing performance from Minnesota with the Vikings expected to be playing from behind likely the whole time, forcing Cousins to put the ball in the air more, especially considering San Francisco can really just chew up possession time. So I could see him going 10 or even more yards over this line, 39 and a half.
Yep. No, I totally dig it for him. Like I think this number should be closer to like 45 and between 45 and 50. And some places are already at 41 and a half for him. So I think the 39 and a half that you can get on some books is a really good number here for Osborne. Like he looks like a wide receiver 1. He's got the talent, raw ability of a wide receiver 1 too. So I think he'll be a good bet for Kirk Cousins as a dependable receiver. I do think Hawkinson will continue to eat, but man, like, do you want to be Hawkinson running in amongst that linebacker core and expected to get a bunch of passes, like, catch a bunch of passes against Fred, the best, what I'll call definitely the best coverage linebacker in the league in Warner, if not right now the best linebacker in the league, playing like a defensive player of the year. So not a good opportunity.
He looked so good in that Cowboys game. I mean, he was
Incredible.
just a unit.
Yeah. Yeah, they were.
Oh, not super relevant here, but I mean, I just reminding everybody who he is.
I think it's highly relevant because he is the reason that tight ends do not score against the 49ers and don't put up points in too many different ways either. So let's move on to the last pick before we try to put them into a parlay and see what we can do.
Okay, my last one is Alexander Mattison under 45 and a half rushing yards. Aside from the fact that a motivated 49ers defense is a force for anyone to reckon with, Madison has kind of been on the struggle bus all season. His carries range from 18 to 20. I mean, it's pretty wide. And I think Cam Akers is kind of lurking in the shadows. I think they're going to start getting him more involved in this offense and split more of those snaps, more of that workload. Madison is averaging 3.9 yards per carry this season, so he would need 12 attempts to hit this, and a negative game script is going to make that tough. The Vikings are also having an issue holding on to the ball this season. They've had a lot of drop passes, and Madison is at the top of the list with 5. So the Vikings clearly still believe in him and what he brings to their offense with his running style and his physicality. Nonetheless, I'm going to find it rather confusing if Akers is once again an afterthought in the offense for this Monday night game against the formidable Niners D-line. I think Wes Phillips is going to make that adjustment, and we're going to see Madison's production drop.
I think it makes sense. I think the most important thing here is how in what world does Alexander Mattison get more, let's say 15 carries? If he gets 15 carries, he needs to average 3 yards a carry against this team, I still don't know that I feel comfortable. And that would be on the high end, the 15, because he could easily get 9 to 10 carries in this game if he's splitting at a higher rate like he did 2 games ago with Cam Akers. Like they're definitely trying to get him in there, Cam Akers, like you said. And I think that they will start doing that a bit more. I agree with you that in that point. I mean, the 8 carries that he saw against the Chiefs 2 weeks ago, like I said, when Akers ate into it a little bit, that was mostly, I think, at that point, just to kind of let Madison know, like, you can't be fumbling anymore. You can't be doing all the stuff you did at the beginning of the season that really cost us a number of games. Like, this is the most, the team that coughs it up the most because, well, Kirk Cousins is always going to be vulnerable for turnovers, and also just because of Madison's fumble problems early as well. So I think the leash continues to be short. This is a team that he could easily fumble against in the 49ers, who continue to cause fumbles against their opponents. I agree with everything you said there. There's really nothing here to feel good about with Madison in a situation where they're going to be having to throw Like I just don't see it. And he's good to get targets. Like they definitely target him when they need to throw to a running back. But Cam Akers is also really good at that. Cam Akers has not been good at the pass protection. So that's why even if Madison is in there late, it's not going to be running. It's going to be pass protecting or catching the ball. So I'm not worried about the snap share being as high as it is for Madison is essentially what I'm saying.
Okay, so we're 3 of 3 in agreement so far?
I think so. Yeah, I definitely, I can't believe how low KJ Osborne is. I think Alexander Madison, I wish it was a little bit higher because 45 isn't that high. But like I said, even if he's getting to 10 totes in this one, which is really like easily could see that happening, he ain't averaging 4.5 yards a carry against this 49ers front seven. So I concur there. Let me throw them into our parlay here and see how we like that. I'm gonna do it on FanDuel because that's where I've been doing these for everybody to win. But just a friendly reminder that this is something you need to be liked and subscribed to the page to win on YouTube, on audio. For those of you listening on podcasts, want to go ahead and follow along and then rate the podcast as well. Going to go ahead and look at the same game parlay here for Mr. Alexander Madison to go ahead and get under 45.5 rushing yards. That's minus 113 for us. For the receiving props, we're taking over for Mr. Brandon Ayuk. He's actually at 70.5 on FanDuel, so we get a better number there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm great with it. And then Osborne is at 41.5 now on FanDuel. So, it all evens out. But I wasn't worried about that because I would consider I might even consider a little baby ladder on KJ Osborne where like you take him. Yeah, right. Like 40, 50,
I would take that at 10 more than what it's sitting at right now, or was when I was looking at it.
Yep, exactly. So once you get to that point though, it's like, all right, well, if you can get to 50, maybe probably get to 60, and I get the juice for 60 too, So let me put all that together real quick. So with the three boys that we got here, we get minus 113 for Madison under. Ayuk over 70.5 receiving, we get minus 113. KJ Osborne over 41.5, we get minus 106 because it did go up. So we do get it juiced a little bit there. Same game parlay puts us at plus 540.
Okay, but you wanted 10 to 1, right? 10 to 1
do, but I also really want to feel confident about it and hit one and give people some money. So maybe I'll put $25 on this or $20 on this instead of the 10 that I was thinking about.
Okay, I like it.
Let me do this too. Let's talk about your anytime touchdown real quick, and then I might throw that into the bet.
Sure.
And do like 2 little ones.
I like that. So, remember how we were chatting earlier and I wanted to come up with something a little bit less square than Ayuk, especially because I wanted to take over receiving yards. You could throw him into this same game parlay.
Right.
He's at plus 150. That is solid value based on everything that we just said, the conversation about him and Debo. Plus 150, I think looks...
That gets us to 10 to 1.
Really good. You've got CMC minus 200. Even though he might be limited and the books know that. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't make any money betting on what's virtually a sure thing.
He's minus 185 with one leg.
It's wild. Yeah. And I remember in my first episode with you, right before the season started, when I was talking about my anytime touchdown scorer game winner parlay strategy, I remember touching on this very thing, that as the season goes along, these standout guys just start to lose all of their value in their individual scorer odds. You see it with Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. I think CMC's odds are just the worst offender of that I'm seeing, just because he's the best. Worst, totally. Best, he's the worst. So there's just, why take that? It's kind of silly at that point. Yeah. But plus 150 for Ayuk, I think would be a great addition to that parlay for the people. But with that said, and like I said earlier, I kind of wanted to think of something else. This is a bit of a flyer, but if you want to break out of the square, I like Juwan Jennings. In the Niners loss last week, he looked really good. He was really making life hard for Greg Newsome, who is one of the better defensive backs in the league. I was just super impressed watching him step up. He hasn't gotten to the end zone yet this year, but with Debo out, I wouldn't be at all surprised if this was his night. I think that this is a good matchup for him. He's going to face Metellus. What is his passer rating? I think I was just looking at it. Hold on one second. 129 for this season. So I could really see Juwan Jennings getting a few more looks than usual tonight. Now, shop around on this. I only use Bovada.
Yeah.
And as an individual play, they have him at plus 250 odds. But in the pre-built parlay, paired with the Niners to win, the odds jump up to plus 600. The math is not mathing there.
Mm-hmm.
The Niners money line is minus 320. If you put Ayuk with SF money line, it only goes up to plus 190 from plus 150. That makes sense. Bovada gets shit like this wrong all the time. So either they're mispricing his individual odds, which I think is what's happening because plus 250 seems low for him, or they calculated the parlay. So if you do like this pick, definitely pair it with the SF
the Niners to win
to get way, way better value.
Right. Okay, let's do it all. So if I put Ayuk Tutty in the same game parlay, we get that at 10-1.
Okay, great.
Do we want to leave that in there?
I mean, if we really believe that he could sail over his yardage total, I see no reason why he's not doing that and sliding into the end zone.
I like the 7. I like the 7 number. I'm not willing to ladder with him by any means, but I do think that the 7 number is great. Like him to have more than 70 yards, easily 77, 78. That seems like where he's going to end up. Yeah, I mean, nothing scares me about this parlay other than obviously 4 legs is always, it's a lot of legs, but
that's as much as I ever recommend.
Yeah. So yeah, well, let's do the same game parlay. We're gonna put 1052. I'm gonna put $20 on it to win 210.
Love it.
And then the Juwan Jennings touchdown, we're going to go ahead and put that in there and parlay it with the 49ers money line.
So what are the odds you're seeing there?
So Juwan Jennings plus 470 for a tutty.
Okay, so that initial plus 250, that's the part that's off.
That's totally the part that's wrong.
Yeah.
If you take that with the money line, it goes up to plus 532 here. Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, I'm back on the left side.
Right. They're doing it wrong in one place, but right in the other. So, I think that's still worth it, right?
Okay. Do you like him in this spot? I mean, what did you think about?
Yeah, I love Juwan Jennings in a spot where he's basically wide receiver 2.
Yeah. He doesn't put up the flashiest numbers, but I feel like he's a very core part of that offense.
I would fully agree that he's a really, really good third wide receiver for them, and that Brock Purdy trusts him. Like they go to him on third downs. So I think that he's a great bet here. I mean, the plus 450, 470 alone is great, but the money line gets you, 60 cents there. I think it's still worth it. Yeah. So I'm going to put, we got 20 on, and then we're going to put 10 on the same game parlay. Had to sneeze there. So I'm going to put 10 on that. And then do we want to ladder KJ Osborne a little bit? Let's see what we get with KJ Osborne, all receiving yards. Oh, they're not giving it to me on FanDuel. I have to go to a different one. Probably because they know how low it is. Well, for the other one, if we want to take Osborne on some alt stuff here, we can get him. If we took him at 50, it's plus 145. 60 is plus 225. 70 is plus 350.
I wouldn't be on 60. I would cut the ladder there.
Neither would I. We'll just do a little three runger with the 40.
The step stool, Josh.
Yeah, it's a step stool. We'll do a little stool. Yeah, we're doing a KJ Osborne stool. Wow, that sounded weird. All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna go with that, and so we're gonna put a few units on that. Obviously, we'll put maybe like half a unit here on the 40 plus. The 50 plus we'll get for a quarter unit, and then 0.1 units on the 60 plus as well, and go from there. So I think that's the play. That's the ladder. We've got the ATD. I love the anytime touchdown being Juwan Jennings and adding even the SF money line as a parlay with that.
Yeah.
And then I love our 4-leg parlay.
Friends listening, I mean, that is a bit of a flyer for sure.
Sure, of course.
If you want to go safer, I would say Ayuk. Don't bet on CMC at -200, please. But
So
Ayuk for +150 is a really, really solid pick. And
so
plus 150 if you pair it with the money line.
Yep. And so what I do in these situations is either I'll just hit each of them for, half a unit, whatever, however I feel comfortable with all 3 or 4 legs.
Yeah.
And then I will just throw, like I said, 10 or 20 bucks on the 10-1 parlay where you take all 3 or 4 and put them together.
Yeah.
Whenever you get to 4, you usually get to the 10-1 at that point, right? And then that's when, like I said, just throw the 10 or 20 bucks on it just to get that little extra juice if I can, but still obviously come up big if like 3 of them hit and still feel good about it. So
good? Well, now I'm very personally invested in this parlay to the people because those are all my picks. So I would really love for that to hit.
You're damn right. So would whoever likes and subscribes and follows along correctly, rates the podcast, they would also love for that to hit, because we'll throw their name in a little wheel of randomness and get someone out there to money. So
hard for you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, seriously, coming off of a bachelor party where she was camping all weekend, just out and about, still had time to put together this winning parlay for everyone.
Josh, I am not a camping girly. That was against my will.
You were like, put me in front of a screen where I can go ahead and make some football picks, and I'd be way happier.
I want to be watching 10 hours of football on Saturday, not like in nature. It was a little overwhelming.
That's what I did, man. And after losing money, I kind of wish I was out in nature feeling more spiritual. I'm not going to lie to you.
Tough. Like I said earlier, of all weekends, I don't hate that I kind of mostly sat this one out.
Yep. And you get the Monday night game. You will get your team on Monday night, so you don't even miss them playing.
Yes. Right? I'm pumped for tomorrow night for sure.
Hell yeah, we are too, man. I really appreciate you coming on, Jay White. We're gonna roll with that and definitely get you back on now that you're back in action, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to start making more regular appearances now that we've got that surgery out of the way. We're at the halfway point here in the season. It's some surprises thus far. I think that this has been, an interesting first half of a season. So we can talk about that offline, but excited to see where things are going to go next in these upcoming weeks.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, appreciate the time as always. Continue to follow along, everybody. You're going to be coming back to you. The NBA is starting, man. So be ready for daily videos there with plenty of NBA stuff. We'll get Jay White on for some NBA talk, I'm sure. So until we do talk to you next, happy betting.
Bye.